a region of the minority steeped in national history, where the lifeblood of the national economy attracts diverse peoples and interests from across the country and around the globe. It is here in Nigeria's bustling Niger Delta region that we observe and incisively diarize life and activity in this fast-expanding region facing peculiar human and socio-economic challenges. We assess local industry. We hear directly from the people affected by decisions, and we question the decision makers empowered to serve and protect them. I am Ajuri Ngelale, and it is my honor to present to you a diary from the Delta. Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. exclusively on AIT.
I report to you with vigilant eyes and feet on the ground here in the garden city of Port Harcourt, which heard the echoes of eerily familiar history reverberate through its streets this past week as pro-Biafra agitators took over the Rivers Abia boundary communities, demanding for the secession of a sovereign Biafran nation from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Very few could have imagined what would happen next. I am Ajuri Ngelale, and I stand privileged to present to you my diary from the Delta.
Biafra is a very simple one: to get Biafra by every means necessary and possible, by every means, including war,
including violence.
Dear Lord in heaven, big violence that no one has ever seen before. We said we will burn the zoo down and we will do it. Nigeria will be burnt to the ground, completely burnt to the ground.
This chilling call to arms and indiscriminate brutality nonchalantly proceeding from the detained director of Biafra Radio, Nnamdi Kanu, has formed the foundational philosophy and methodology of a movement which has metamorphosed from a drip to a steady trickle across states in Nigeria's southeast geopolitical zone. In recent weeks, however, the southeastern movement has attempted a forceful migration south into the nation's treasure base of River State, Nigeria. This migration followed the detention of Nnamdi Kanu after many months of making public statements and actions which Nigerian government officials deemed to be treasonous. On October 20th, 2015, a group of over 1,000 youths known as the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, marched on Port Harcourt to protest. Nigerian security forces would quickly arrest the non-violent protests, but in defiance of a protest ban levied against both MASOB and the IPOB by the Nigeria Police Force, the protesters would march on Port Harcourt once again exactly 3 weeks later on Tuesday, November 10th, 2015. But this time with unbridled ferocity in their eyes and violent determination in their steps.
A simple, small, and harmless tire. For most, it is a critical component of transportation, and for many others, it is the focal point of a business or even a larger industry. But on a day unlike any other in recent history in Nigeria's oil and gas hub of River State, one man's tool became another man's weapon.
The Biafran agitation has taken Nigeria by storm, from the southeast of the country to the different south states of the country. What started as a Facebook and social media agitation took a different turn in the past 3 weeks, as most streets in that part of Nigeria have been set on edge. And one person who has been through that direct experience is our reporter, our correspondent, and the host of this show, Ajuri Ngalale.
Thank you, Atiba Moya.
What was the experience like?
You know, it was harrowing. I have never in my life been so close to death. And my experience there tells me that there is a need in this country right now to, in a concerted, in a determined way, in a united way, to advance dialogue. What I saw that day were the eyes of young men who have been absolutely frustrated, who have had their hopes completely extinguished by perpetually corrupt governance, kleptocratic governance across every level, from the federal to the state to the local government in this country. And it's coming out now in ways that we potentially will not be able to control unless we do the right things to correct the systemic problems that are confronting the development of this country.
But was it really a spontaneous thing, or did you have time to reflect that there's probably danger ahead of you?
It's a great question, Atiba. There was absolutely no time to make any change in course, because what you had happening was, by the time the boys were setting these tires up, we looked behind us. There is a bit of traffic behind us. We have about 10 or so, 10, 15 cars lined up behind us on both sides. And then behind them, you have another set of tires that have been set on fire. So we're now blocked from the behind, and we're blocked up front. All right, so we get to the point where we're at the front now of this first line. And you're looking around and you're looking for security agents, you're looking for police, you're looking for anybody who from the state can help.
That's totally
and
absolute.
There's absolutely nobody.
Now, how about the environment itself, the community, this particular place where this thing happened?
Mm-hmm.
Were there no members of the community there? What were they doing? Were people, running up and down and trying to get protection and safety?
Well, no, what you had was you had people streaming out of shops. You had people streaming out of shops, nearby residential quarters. You had people streaming out on the side of the road because they knew what was going on. It was really the people who had property, who had cars, that were really stuck. And let me just tell you that, after we got through the first, by the grace of God, we just found a way to get through that first line of fire. And the line, when I say a line of fire, I'm a pretty tall man. And next to me, it would have gone about up to my hip. It was quite high, across the road. And we were able to meander around it. But what we did not understand at that point was ahead of us, it was like a set of hurdles. Because almost as far as the eye could see, several hundred meters, you had one line of fire with boys on both sides covering. Then you had another line of fire after that on top of tires with another set of boys covering. So it was just absolute pandemonium. This is what sticks out, though. When we get across the first line, we're approaching the second line, and all of a sudden, about 20 boys approach my vehicle. I had the misfortune on that day of having a vehicle which stood out amongst other vehicles. I think it attracted a little bit of attention because of the tinted glass and some of the other features on the vehicle. And what ended up happening is the boys came to the car and they realized that there is a half-caste in Oyibo in the car. And that attracted additional attention. When that happened, they started rocking the car vigorously with great power on both sides. At this point, I'm inside of the car, my cameraman is in the back seat, the driver is in the front seat, I'm in the passenger seat. And from all sides of the car, you look around, all you see is humanity. And it certainly wasn't any kind of a loving embrace. They're hitting the car with their hands, they're hitting the car with planks, all right? And just as we're making slow movement with everybody, with all of these protesters around the car, the young boys are saying things. Oh, Yibo, you think say they fear death? We know they fear death, oh. We know they fear death. We know they fear death. If you want match us, make we die. All these kinds of inciting, very dangerous statements like this. And of course, they could have never known that I'm
You're actually a son of the soil.
That I'm a son of the soil. But that's the irony of life. And as we're moving on, as we're moving through, all right, one of them takes a plank and smashes in the back windscreen of the vehicle. the entire back windscreen just caves it in. And at that, right when that happened, right, almost simultaneous, as soon as that happened, that shatter happened, we had finally gotten through and we broke through that line. At this point, the boys are saying, get that Oyibo, get that Oyibo, get that Oyibo. So we did have the sense, okay, that in that place we were under particular threat, under specific threat. So when we got across the first, this line now, I happen to be a believer. I happen to be somewhat of a spiritual person. And I had a still small voice tell me, which I attribute to be the Spirit of the living God, tell me that I needed to get out of that vehicle. And I asked my driver his advice, because he knew that I was unsafe in the car. He knew that all of us were unsafe in the car, but he knew that I was particularly unsafe in the car. And I asked him, and he told me, he said, you're unsafe here, but I believe you're going to be more unsafe if you go out there with what's going on, especially with these boys behind us and in front of us. But I knew I had to get out. And I put my phone in my left pocket, I put my wallet in my other pocket. And at that point, a Okada comes out of nowhere. No one on the back of it. And I knew I had to get out, so I just opened the door, and he asked me verbally, do you want to go? Do you want to go? This man.
This man you've never met before.
I've never met him
just
before.
Came out from nowhere.
Till tomorrow, I believe that this was somebody sent from God to save my life. And I didn't even answer him. I literally took 2 steps and threw my body onto the back of that Okada with full force. He sped off. So now, I'm on the back of the Okada, and I'm, of course, because of my skin, I'm wearing a t-shirt that day. Because of my skin, I tuck in my arms behind the back of the Okada. So instead of holding the seat for safety, I just tuck in my arms behind the back of the Okada, and I hide my face behind the head of the Okada driver so that nobody will be able to see that I'm a white man on the bike and all of that until I've already passed by. But as we got closer to the line, I realized that that wasn't going to be sufficient. I realized that they were going to stop me if I got to the line on the back of the Okada. So me and the Okada driver came to an agreement that I was going to get off of the Okada, separate from him, sneak away very quickly. If he can break through that line, I was going to rejoin him, and we were going to try and break for freedom. So at that point, it was, it's difficult to describe what's going through one's mind when you are in fear for your life. Yeah. But I just ran, and I found a canopy, and I snuck under the canopy. And fortunately for me, nobody followed me. Nobody saw me go under. There was so much commotion. And I was able to, within eye view, see the Okada driver break through the line. They allowed him to go because he was alone. And as soon as they allowed him to go, I just bolted with everything I had out of the canopy, back into the street in full view of everybody, threw my body onto the back of the Okada.
Were they chasing at you?
Yes, at this point, they're chasing after me. And they're saying, get that Oyibo, there's no movement, get that Oyibo, get that Oyibo, get that Oyibo, stop that Oyibo, stop him, on your jack, all those things, you know. So, I'm on the back of the Okada now. The Okada driver has heard everything these boys are saying. He knows that I'm at risk. So at this point, there happens to be a space, all right? Another line of tires ablazing on the road, and boys on both sides, and there is a space of about this big, all right, about this big, between the tires, with flames everywhere. But it was enough to fit through an Okada. And if one squeezes one's leg tight to the Okada to get through, without hopefully getting burned. But at that point, you're not thinking about whether you're going to get burned or not. You're thinking about escaping with your life. So he went full throttle. And as fast as that bike could carry us, we drove right through the middle of the flames. I was not burnt. The Okada driver was not burnt. And the bike was not damaged. And we were free.
This is supposed to be a protest to bring to attention whatever demands they have of the government. Whatever it is, it might be subjective, it might have some level of objectivity in it, depending on which angle you're looking at it. But from the way and manner this protest, has been going, from your own personal experience, do you think there's anything really a genuine cause for the folks who are out there on the street, burning down trucks, burning down vehicles, vandalizing properties, and chasing people, being threat to the safety of lives and people. Is there any genuine case for any of these ones who are trying to make this statement?
Tibe, I have always been particularly sensitive to those who have suggested that the Igbo ethnic minority has not quite been given its fair shake in the federal system. And we all know some of the antecedents, some of the things of history which have led to such a scenario, but at what point does it change? At what point do we give all ethnic minorities and ethnic groups in the country fair hearing, equal representation? They have 5 states. All of the other geopolitical zones have 6. I mean, these are fundamental questions which I think can and should be asked. The question, however, is about how do we go about that change? How do we go about that progress? How do we advance that cause without threatening the lives of others and without threatening the unity and stability of a country that we all love?
Ajuri, not everybody are fortunate enough to find themselves in this risky, high-risk situation and come out alive to tell the story. But you have come out alive, well and whole, to tell the story.
To the glory of God.
Happy for you, happy for your life.
Thank you very much, Atiba.
Yeah.
Bless you.
A region which has seen political upheaval between rival political groups, inflamed tensions over the past 3 years. River State Governor Chief Nyesom Wike has urged all rival political groups in the state to come together for the peaceful development of the state. And after having secured a climate of calm in the state following years of disquiet, the sudden intrusion of this southeastern protest movement into the state has represented a new threat to state development and stability in this key economic barter zone, a threat which the River State government says must be dealt with swiftly and holistically in close cooperation with federal authorities.
No individual or group has the right whatsoever to disturb public peace and order, threaten the safety of the public, and create fear and an atmosphere of insecurity in the state or any part thereof. The right of any group of persons to agitate for their perceived rights cannot be allowed to infringe on the rights of other Nigerians, especially the people of Rivers State, to remain an integral component of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Our government was elected on a mandate and has sworn to an oath to defend the sovereignty of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Therefore, the Rivers State government will not fold its arms and allow members of the indigenous people of Biafra or any other group to turn the state or any part thereof into a hotbed of unlawful protest against the unity and peaceful coexistence of the various peoples and ethnic groups within the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Consequently, after due consultations with the members of the State Security Council and in exercise of my constitutional responsibility to preserve the safety, security, and corporate integrity of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it is hereby ordered that all forms of street protests, demonstrations, rallies, or unlawful gatherings associated with agitation for the secession of any group from the Federal Republic of Nigeria are banned in Rivers State.
While the pro-Biafra movement has its roots firmly entrenched within the confines of the southeast geopolitical zone, there is little doubt about the reality that previous years of underdevelopment and neglect in Nigeria's expansive Niger Delta region has given rise to a youthful population whose daily experience is characterized by breathtaking frustration at almost every turn. Beset by a worrisome dearth of employment opportunities, the population is also confronted by inflated transportation costs and imported fuel prices, which are amongst the highest in the Federation, in the very region from which the raw petroleum products are derived, at an additional cost to the environmental health indices of local communities. These harsh realities combine with a pungent over-reliance on decayed colonial-era infrastructure to create a suppression of hope and a level of disillusionment amongst youths who consequently become open to indoctrination by even the most destructive doctrines of indiscriminate public antagonism.
And look at our roads, look at our environment. We own oil in our state, but we are begging. People that own the resources, we don't have job, we don't have road, we don't have light, we don't have nothing at all is working out this area. So that is our anger. We want to separate, we want to go.
There's so much inequality. There's so much imbalance. And we cannot continue like that. We cannot sing One Nigeria as a slogan. And yet, the things we do doesn't seem to tally. For me, I don't think violence is the way out. You understand? They should protest, but it should be peaceful.
Alarmed by the threats posed by the activities of pirate radio station Radio Biafra, is the pioneer Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, Dr. Tom Adaba, who questions whether a lack of consensus and resolve amongst Igbo leaders is contributing to the escalation of pro-secession movements.
I still think that it's only right and proper that the leaders of the people take up the responsibility as leaders. They need to really come up now and say, yes, this is what our direction is. And what did they fear about even the various administration? Oh, there will be no Igbo man in the government. How many of them are in government? And I mean, I'm talking of in the cabinet. And I'm talking of not just, I don't know if there is any of them who is a minister of state. Maybe one, I don't know. But, all of them are in key positions with science and technology, with labor and employment, which is a key area of the present administration's political thrust. You have somebody in Foreign affairs. What else could you ask for? Now, if that was their fear, the fear is allayed. So what's all these pulamanoo about Biafra? I mean, there's some tinge of selfishness that goes with it. There's a great lot of misinformation that goes along with it. And the elders of the Igbo people, got up and talked to their youngsters to stop this. I don't know if it's rascality or brigandage, but to stop this thing called secession. It's not a child's play.
Throughout human history and across borders, even the most legitimate human causes have been misdirected by the will, persuasion, and guile of dark forces. Any community within this diverse nation of communities is entitled to shape its own destiny, but certainly not the destiny of others. At the heart of recent events is the choice between self-alienation or active coexistence, and at stake is nothing less than the longevity and strength of Africa's largest democracy, population, and economy, the leadership of the most strategic continent in this century, and the pride of an entire race. Applying with determination the lessons of history spares our present and future moments of its pain, defeat, and regret.